We don't feed people. It's not a zoo and it's not feeding time. We are here to assist people with their meals. You experience behavior that's challenging at mealtimes in people you support who live with dementia. Do you see it as your problem in not getting the mealtime right for them?
Hello, welcome. I'm Luca and the co-founder and owner of the Living Care Company. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Luca. It's great to be here. My name's Jo Bonser. I've worked in the care sector for over 35 years. I've just recently sold a business which provided products and services into care homes and also help people live at home in the community safely and independently with daily living aids. My new business and the business that I will be focusing on moving forward and promoting is around helping people with dementia to eat better. And that's through education, through understanding, through gaining knowledge. And this has all come through my own lived experience, caring for my mum, who lived at home with vascular dementia for over 6 years. We had enormous challenges with mum and her nutrition hydration, to the extent that in winter of 2016, she stopped eating and drinking. She lost an enormous amount of weight. She was malnourished. She was dehydrated. She was falling. She had chest infections and urinary tract infections. She was really poorly. And basically the care professionals turned around to me and said, Jo, your mum's given up. Just expect that she's going to die. And I had a different view. I didn't think that mum was ready to go. And I wanted to do everything that I could to help her. With the contacts that I'd got and the knowledge I'd got in the care industry, I did a lot of research around mealtimes for people who live with dementia and some of the unique challenges and complex interactions people with dementia can have with the mealtime environment, plus other eating challenges and eating behaviors that can prevent nutritional intake. And I used this knowledge that I learned. I did mealtime observations with my mum and I took responsibility for her mealtimes. And within weeks, I got her back from literally refusing food and refusing drink to eating independently, to enjoying food again. And she ended up enjoying 4 more Christmas dinners and blowing out a further 396 birthday candles before she finally left us in March 2020 on Mother's Day.
Amazing.
The first thing that I looked at was what were the reasons why mum might be refusing to eat. Initially, I wasn't assisting her at mealtimes. She had a carer that would come and she would be responsible for feeding mum. And I use that term with inverted commas because that is a term that's used widely and has absolutely no dignity attached to it. And I'm really passionate about the fact that we don't feed people. It's not a zoo and it's not feeding time. We are here to assist people with their meals. And so when I looked at how the carer was interacting with mum or not, and how they approach mealtimes, that was a bit of a key issue for me. And it led to me actually leading mealtimes and me sitting down with mum and talking to her while I was assisting her, explaining to her exactly what was on her plate, what she was eating, encouraging her very definitely, and making it more of a social occasion than a task. Knowing my mum was an extremely proud and independent lady, and the feeling that she had to be fed would have been one of the worst possible things for her. So definitely in my mind, it was looking at ways that we could encourage her to get back to eating independently. And it was about putting the right tools and the right environment in place for her. I always use a great saying that I borrowed from a guy called David Sheard of Dementia Care Matters. And that is a question, a very powerful question for people. When you experience behavior that's challenging at mealtimes in people you support who live with dementia, do you see it as your problem in not getting the mealtime right for them? And that's how we need to look at mealtimes. And we need to look at how we can make it right for the individual, make it person-centered. Some of the other things that I identified were noise levels. So the television was always on whilst they were trying to assist her with her meal. And so one of the first things I did, we turned the television off at mealtimes and we replaced it with Frank Sinatra, who was one of her favorites. Old Blue Eyes, she used to call him. Frank Sinatra playing soft and calming music in the background. You could just see it was taking her and she would be singing along. But at the same time, she started to eat.
So then really you looked at the TV in the background, you put on something that actually connected with her and she enjoyed. You obviously paid a lot more attention to her and focused on her and talked to her and encouraged her and things like that. So that was where initially things started to change. What else happened, or what else did you try?
I noticed that when the carers would bring a meal in, they would bring main course, they would bring pudding, they would bring, she might have a mug of tea or coffee on her, because she would eat in the sitting room in a chair with an overbed table. So they would bring in a glass so she could have maybe some water or some juice with her meal. And this would all be sitting on the same overbed table. And there was just too much choice. There was too much clutter. So again, we reduced that down to you serve one course at a time.
Yep.
So she just needs one course and she needs one drink. The other thing that we found with Mum was that she became overfaced with large portions.
Yes.
And made sure that we reduced her portion size down. So she had a small amount to start, but then there was always seconds that she could go back to if she wanted to.
So obviously that was a pretty big breakthrough. How quickly did things change? Extremely quickly once the approach changed, I would imagine.
Yeah, pretty quickly. The other things that I did were I implemented some adapted crockery and cutlery, which I thought would help. The first one being, and I think this is something that we perhaps overlook, is that because it took her a long time to eat her meals, often they could go cold. And one of the best investments was what I call her keep warm plate. And this is a plate where you can put hot water into the base of the plate, and then you can seal it off. I'll show you. I have one later to show you.
Yep.
And then you put the food onto the plate, and because of the hot water below, that it is safe, it's safely sealed away. It helps to keep the meal warmer for longer. Because let's face it, who likes eating cold food?
People of a certain generation. I know my wife's family and her uncle and aunt always used to serve dinners with is it called a home helper? But basically a trolley on wheels that would keep everything warm. Especially the older ones, to have hot dinner was a mark of dignity or occasion.
I still have a hostess trolley.
Yes, hostess trolley. Exactly that. But people don't have those so much anymore, do they? But definitely that was brought out for special occasions, especially to make sure everyone had a hot meal.
I can always remember Mum was a great cook and she loved to cook and provide for lots of people. She was a feeder. And actually, I say it now, if I've got family round and friends round, I will say, as soon as they're served, please don't wait. Please eat it while it's hot.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's important to Mum.
Yep. So what came next?
So the other thing that I implemented for her, because I recognized that when she was really poorly, she actually couldn't open her mouth very wide. So one of the considerations was, what would be the best type of cutlery to help her during this time while she was feeling so unwell? And I discovered a very flat edge spoon, which is like an ice cream scoop that you get in a little tub when you go to the cinema or the theatre. And that was a real breakthrough for her, because it meant she could have really small spoonfuls without having to open her mouth very wide, which was quite painful for her.
Yep.
So that was a breakthrough. And then, so the big breakthrough for me, Mum was right-handed, but because she leant quite a lot in her chair, she leant on her right-hand side, it meant that she couldn't pick up her cutlery in that hand. So it was really incredible when she started to pick up a spoon and eat independently with her left hand. So she basically taught herself to eat independently with the other side of her body. So that was quite a revelation.
So how long was it before she's actually started to feed herself? Was that just a matter of weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely was.
And the whole time, all the other things you held true. You didn't put the TV on, you kept the music on, and then you stayed with her while she was eating, and all those other things.
And I would, when I could, I would eat with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were both eating. And she did used to say how much more she enjoyed those occasions.
What proportion of her sort of recovery, and to what extent did she recover? When you first really started getting involved with Mealtimes, she was at a low end. She lived for another 3 or 4 years. How much better did she get? And how much do you put that down to nutrition? And how much do you put that down to all of the social interaction and getting back to normal of eating in the appropriate way? How much was food and how much was the ritual of eating properly?
That's a really good question. Definitely, for sure, we had our peaks and troughs over the 4.5 years that she lived. She did have other spells in hospital, but we also had really good stages with her when we were going out regularly for Sunday lunch. She put on weight. I mean, I do remember like another milestone when the end of life nurse who had started to visit arrived one day, took one look at Mum and weighed her and said, "You don't need me anymore." And that was quite another milestone for me.
You can't be gaining, if you're end of life, you can't be gaining weight. And she must have been gaining weight.
Yes, she was. So clearly the nutrition was really important, because without that, she couldn't survive for a long period of time. But for her, the social impact, I think, of Mealtimes had an enormous effect.